Hello everyone and welcome back, or if you are new here, welcome. My name is Sophie and this is my YouTube channel. All crime videos are made for educational purposes only. Today we are going to Denmark to look at a case that is nearly 100 years old. So grab something to drink as I tell you about Denmark's worst serial killer in history. Dagmar Overbye was born on April the 23rd, 1887 in a small Danish village. Her parents were poor farmers and she was known as a moody and demanding child. Despite being on the top in school, she often lied and stole. For example, when she was 12, she was caught stealing a neighbor's purse. This, of course, really upset her parents, who were hard-working, honest people. So they sent Dagmar to work on a big farm where she got to wash the clothes, clean the house, cook and milk the cows. After a while, she left the farm and worked in several other homes. But when she was caught stealing from her last place of work, she was arrested and spent 10 days in a women's prison in Svendborg. When she was released, she returned to her childhood home, where she quickly found a job as a waitress. While working there, she would often serve a regular customer named Biskar. They would always smile and flirt with each other and make small talk, and they even started to go out when Dagmar finished work. They moved in together and Dagmar gave birth to a baby boy, but a while after the baby died under mysterious circumstances. When the doctor held an inquest, he observed that the infant had blue lips, a condition which could indicate choking, but the death certificate stated that the child had died from ammonia. The local people were very suspicious and the rumors started circulating. Dagmar left her boyfriend Biskar and left town. In 1912, she met and fell in love with Jens Sørensen. He didn't know it, but at the time he met her, she was already pregnant with another man's child. Dagmar gave birth to a baby girl and named her Irina, and immediately put the child up for adoption. A year later, she was once again pregnant, but her boyfriend Jens, however, didn't want her to have the child and instructed her to have a termination. Dagmar would not do this, so she went through with the pregnancy, and when the baby was born, she abandoned the infant in a haystack. She had hoped to marry Jens, but after the baby's birth, he told her he did not want to marry her, and a devastated Dagmar tried to commit suicide, but didn't succeed. Dagmar pulled herself together and left Jens, and managed to reunite with her daughter Irina, who had been adopted 3 years earlier, and together they went to the capital of Denmark, Copenhagen. She was a clever and resourceful lady and soon opened her own sweet shop. It was now 1915 and World War I was engulfing Europe. Here Dagmar met a gentleman, and along with her daughter, they all moved in together. Unfortunately, the sweet shop failed to make enough money, so Dagmar closed it down and looked for other ways of making a living. She began working as a professional childcare, and one day, while reading a newspaper, she read an article about women who were been giving around 500 Danish kroners to adopt a baby. This gave Dagmar the idea to set up a sort of an official adoption agency. Her plan was to take in unwanted children and find them parents to adopt them. For the first child, Dagmar accepted that she would be paid an upfront fee and a monthly fee. She looked in the newspapers to find young mothers advertising babies for adoption when she came across one placed by 26-year-old Rasmin Jensen. She had given birth to a boy out of marriage and wanted to have him adopted. Dagmar contacted the mother, and on the 15th of April 1916, Rasmin put her 3-week-old infant son Harry into Dagmar's care. She gave her 12 kroner, which was the first month's payment. The agreement was that Rasmin would pay Dagmar 12 kroner every month until she will get the child adopted. Soon after accepting the child and taking the payment, Dagmar put the baby into a pram and took him for a walk. For some reason, however, she decided to strangle the baby and dump him in a public toilet at a local cemetery. The body stayed there for 3 days before it was found by the cleaners. The day the body was found, Dagmar wrote a letter to the mother, reassuring her that the child was doing well. Strangely, she wrote that the child was not crying at all, which, of course, is tragically true. 14 days later, she did it again. She accepted a child from a worried mother, murdered it, and dumped the body under a bridge. At this point, Dagmar started to justify her actions. Terminations were illegal and often performed in backstreet clinics and were considered dangerous. Young girls were usually frightened of the action and the dangers to their health. So many preferred to have the child and then tried to find a good home for the baby once it was born. This was such easy money for Dagmar, sometimes followed by good payments. But Dagmar had a concern. Whenever she disposed of the bodies, that it would eventually be found. So she came up with an idea. Instead of dumping the bodies as she had her first 2 killings, she could burn the infants in her heater. In July 1920, a young factory worker named Caroline had a baby out of marriage. Caroline was from a very Christian family who were ashamed of her and would not permit her to bring the child into the family home. So the best solution was to put the child up for adoption. Caroline put an advertisement in a local newspaper trying to find a nice family to adopt her newborn child. It was a simple ad that read, "Parents wanted for little girl of 3 weeks old. Preferably a nice loving Christian home." Dagmar was always looking for these types of adverts and quickly answered it. The two of them arranged for Caroline to take the baby named Sarah to Dagmar's home on August the 30th, 1920. Caroline was very upset and explained to Dagmar that she wasn't entirely sure if giving her baby up for adoption was the right thing to do. Dagmar told her that she would find a good home for the child and that it usually took about 2 weeks until she found the right family for the baby. Eventually, Caroline agreed. This probably was the best option for her baby and the family. She paid Dagmar her fee of 200 kroner. The following day, Caroline, distressed and upset, went back to Dagmar's apartment and explained that she had made a big mistake, so she asked to have her baby back. Dagmar was shocked to see the girl back so soon and told the young mother that unfortunately she had already placed the child with a lady she met in the Eating Guard district of Copenhagen, but she couldn't remember the exact address of the family. She asked Caroline to return later, and she would have the address. Caroline returned 3 times, and each time Dagmar told her the family had adopted the baby and she could not get the baby back. Caroline was a determined young woman and desperate to be reunited with her child, so she went to the police. The police took the complaint very seriously and went to visit Dagmar and search her home. What they found was shocking. As well as baby clothes, they found the remains of babies, they found bones and a skull in the ash of the stove. Dagmar was arrested and police called in investigators to search and examine the premises. Dagmar, however, did not deny her crime and confessed to the death of 16 children. The authorities only recovered the remains of 9 infants, so she was charged with 9 counts of murder. The police suspected that she had actually killed 25 babies, including her own child. The press instantly reported the crime, and the headlines about Denmark's most notorious serial killer dominated the front pages and caused the national scandal. Dagmar's adoption service was illegal, but so was having a termination. The moral debate started to dominate the conversations. These poor, unfortunate young women who have been abandoned by the father and shunned by their families had no money to raise a child and no support from the state. Some thought an illegal adoption agency was their only choice. Adoption agencies were a service that was very much needed in the 1920s. Dagmar's trial started in March 1921, and she did not deny her crime. At the trial, more revelations came to light when the investigators' evidence, including photographs they had found in her home of 20 naked children she had murdered. She was found guilty and sent to death. While awaiting her execution, the reigning monarch, King Christian, commuted the sentence to life in prison, saying that in Denmark we don't put out women to death. In 1923, the Danish government passed a law relating to children born out of wedlock, which provided for both the supervision of foster children and the creation of a home for children born from unmarried mothers. Dagmar served her remaining years in prison and eventually died on the 6th of May 1929 at the age of 42. This was the story about Dagmar Overbye, also known now as the Angel Maker. Thank you for listening and see you in the next case.